free the land. On another great day of resistance, I bring to you today a story of a great black man, a great new African man from the state of Virginia who escaped slavery 3 times. First from Virginia to Boston, Massachusetts, where he would ultimately end up in Montreal, Canada, where he and other Africans would establish the first new African black community in Montreal, Canada. This great brother on February 15th, 1851, with the help of some black abolitionists, helped liberate this brother and go down in history as one of the greatest escapes in our story. I'm talking about no other than the great brother, Shadrach Minkins. This great brother, Shadrach Minkins, was born in the state of Virginia under the dehumanizing capitalist system of slavery. During his years in Virginia, he's seen the most horrific, brutal things done to black people in the state of Virginia under slavery. Shadrach Minkins would be influenced and inspired by rebellions, because so many rebellions took place in the state of Virginia, it was labeled the state and the land of rebellion. One of those rebellions was the Great Nat Turner slave rebellion that inspired Shadrach Minkins to escape slavery. Brutally, Shadrach Minkins' owners were murdered by enslaved peoples. This also had an effect on Shadrach Minkins. So later, in May 3rd, 1850, Shadrach Minkins would escape from Norfolk, Virginia on a steamship that landed in Baltimore and ultimately took him to Boston, Massachusetts, where he would stay there for at least almost a year before his cover was blown. Also, a sister by the name of Rebecca Jones, who would escape slavery 6 years later, stated that it was possibly that her husband was the other individual who was with Shadrach Minkins that escaped slavery with him from the state of Virginia to Boston, Massachusetts. While in Boston at the time, Shadrach Minkins, now a new African proletariat, working in a coffee shop, one of the most horrific laws came into effect to recapture black people who escaped slavery from the South. I'm talking about no other than the historic law, criminal law of the Fugitive Slave Act of 1850, where Southern states would put pressure on Northern states to return their property, to return their slaves back to Southern deep states. Which brings me to the date. On this date, February 15th, 1851, 2 white officers were posing undercover as customers at the coffee shop, would rush Shadrach Minkins and detain him and take him to Boston's city jail, where a couple of days later, where his court trial would start. On his counsel were black abolitionists who were undercover as lawyers for Shadrach Minkins, would rush the courtroom and take Shadrach Minkins and rush him out the courtroom and take him to a safe house in Boston, where 2 great leaders, black abolitionists, Lewis Hayton and John Jr. Smith, would later help him escape on the Underground Railroad to Montreal, Canada, with several other African brothers and sisters. Once in Montreal, Canada, this great brother with other enslaved African peoples who escaped to Montreal, Canada, would establish the first black, independent, new African community settlement in Montreal, Canada. Years later, in 1875, this great brother, Shadrach Minkins, would later pass on. So let's send out salutations to this great rebel, this great brother of resistance who escaped slavery on this day and defied the odds and ultimately found freedom. Long live the revolutionary spirit of Shadrach Minkins and those great black abolitionists. Free the land by any means necessary.